The first thing I saw when I woke up was my wife kissing another man at my bedside. I didn't cough. I didn't groan. I didn't even blink. I just watched, frozen, silent, and wide awake, while Carla tilted her head toward him with the kind of tenderness I thought was mine. He kissed her back like he owned her. Like I hadn't flatlined 11 months ago holding her hand. She pulled away just as my eyes met hers. The way her face dropped, it wasn't guilt. It was fear. She took a step back like she'd seen a ghost. The man turned, and it was Robert. My company's CFO. My so-called best man. The one I trusted with everything, my books, my investments, and now apparently, my wife. Jerry? Carla's voice cracked. Jerry, oh my God, you're awake. Robert didn't say a word. Just looked at me like a man watching a will rewrite itself in real time. I tried to sit up, but I was too weak. Tubes pulled at my arm. The heart monitor spiked. I wasn't in pain, I was beyond that. Carla rushed forward. Jerry, wait, it's not what you think. I stared at her, the machines beeping faster. You kissed him, I said. She froze. Right here. Next to your coma husband. You kissed him like I was a painting on the wall. Robert stepped forward, pretending calm. Jerry, let's talk. You've been through trauma. There are things. Things like your tongue in my wife's mouth? I cut in. Carla flinched. You should rest, she said softly, placing her hand on my arm. I turned my arm away. Tell me, I said slowly. While I was unconscious, how many board votes did you help him rig? Carla blinked. What? I looked at Robert. You think I don't know how many of my shares you moved under Carla's name? Robert's jaw clenched, but he smiled. You've only just woken up. I smiled back. Exactly. I woke up. That means it's your turn to fall asleep. I'm Jerry Lancaster, 33, sole heir to the Lancaster Group, and for 11 months, the world thought I was nothing more than a breathing corpse. A high-speed accident placed me in a coma that the doctors politely called indefinite. What they didn't know was that I heard everything. Every nurse's whisper. Every doctor's grim update. Every legal conversation Carla had when she thought I couldn't hear. For nearly a year, I listened to the world reshape around me while my body refused to move. I was a ghost tethered to a hospital bed, mute, paralyzed, but painfully aware. Before the accident, I lived in the eye of a typhoon, power, meetings, travel, Carla. I built empires before breakfast. I crushed mergers before noon. I spent evenings in tailored suits with champagne in one hand and the future in the other. But when the car flipped and steel twisted around my ribs, all that control vanished. And so did Carla. We married young, too young, maybe. I was the heir. She was the stunning daughter of a diplomat. Everyone said we were a power couple. I believed it. Her smile used to feel like home. Her ambition, fierce, but loyal. At least that's what I thought. Now I realize her loyalty only lasted as long as the flashbulbs did. When I became a liability, she didn't just survive, she evolved. Carla Lancaster. My wife, at least on paper. Sharp cheekbones. Sharper instincts. A public darling with flawless PR. Her interviews during my coma trended on every platform. Wife of billionaire refuses to give up hope. She played the grieving spouse with terrifying precision. The tears, the hospital visits, the charitable foundations she launched in my name. The media ate it up. But behind the screens, she was transferring board proxies. Selling shares. Liquidating assets I hadn't even signed off on. And Robert was right there with her. Robert Chen. My CFO. My former college roommate. A man I once trusted with codes to my safe. He sent flowers to my hospital room. Paid for Carla's press team. Stayed by her side, people said. I should have known the moment loyalty came with a press release. But there's someone else you won't find in headlines. Someone who never left my side even when the hospital lights dimmed. Rosario. My executive assistant. She started as a temp 5 years ago, shy, quiet, methodical. But she's sharper than anyone gives her credit for. While Carla paraded herself in front of cameras and Robert smiled behind glass conference doors, Rosario stayed late, tracked every transaction, and flagged every odd proxy vote. She never asked for anything, never leaked a word. While others stepped over my body to climb the ladder, Rosario knelt quietly beside me and waited. The irony? No one ever noticed her. They overlooked the quiet girl with the beige skirt and black flats. But not me. I noticed everything. Especially now. When I finally opened my eyes and saw Carla kissing Robert, it wasn't heartbreak that hit me, it was confirmation. They thought I'd die. They thought they'd inherit. They thought wrong. Carla leaned in when she saw I was awake, her voice breathless. Jerry, baby. We didn't know if. Get Rosario, I croaked. Her smile faltered. What? I stared at her without blinking. Get Rosario. Now. Robert looked between us. Jerry, you should rest. You just woke up? I repeated, louder, Rosario. They exchanged a glance. Carla's lips pressed into a thin line. She fumbled for her phone and stepped out into the hallway. Robert stayed behind. Look, Jerry, we were just talking about finances. She's been overwhelmed. The company needed stabilizing and. Leave, I said, eyes locked on his reflection in the window. He didn't move. He stared at me like he was waiting to see if this was real, if I'd slip back into unconsciousness and let him keep the throne warm. But I didn't blink. Eventually, he left. Quietly. Like a man who's afraid the ghost might rise. Minutes later, Rosario entered. Her hair was pulled into its usual low bun, but her eyes, those always serious eyes, were wider than I'd ever seen them. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Sir, she whispered, her voice catching. I nodded. It took everything in me, but I nodded. And Rosario, who never showed emotion, burst into tears. She stepped forward, hesitating, then gripped my hand tightly. They said you might not wake up. That even if you did, you wouldn't remember anything. I didn't believe them. I managed a raspy smile. I remember everything. She wiped her face and leaned in closer. Then you know? I saw enough. Her eyes sharpened instantly. Do you want me to pull the records? The votes? The fund movements? I squeezed her hand. I want every dollar Carla touched. Every account Robert manipulated. Every document they buried. She nodded once, businesslike now. Already done. That's why she's still here. Not just because she's loyal. But because she's ready. While everyone else was waiting for me to die, Rosario was preparing for war. And now? Now it's time I got out of this bed, and took everything back. Rosario returned the next morning with a folder thicker than the 4 drips still lodged in my hand. She closed the door behind her without a word, drew the blinds, and placed the folder on my lap. Her voice was calm, steady. You said you wanted everything Carla touched. I didn't speak. I just opened the file. The first few pages were expected. Proxy movements. Board votes passed with Carla acting as my legal representative. Signatures forged. Timed perfectly around hospital press releases about my steady decline. Next were the asset transfers. 1 villa in Montauk, gone. Sold to a shell company Robert had registered in the Caymans. Rosario had traced it by matching the notary schedule and comparing the document timestamps to a suspicious uptick in Robert's brokerage account. Then came the kicker. A silent purchase of a $4.8 million penthouse overlooking Central Park, made with funds from a trust my father had created for my future children. Purchased under the name, C. Lancaster. Beneficiary, R. Chen. I stared at it for a long time. Not because it surprised me, but because it didn't. Rosario knelt beside the bed, watching me carefully. That account was locked. Carla had to provide medical proof that you were permanently incapacitated in order to access it. I looked at her. Did she? She had a neurologist submit falsified reports. I've already spoken to the hospital's legal department. Quietly. Quietly is good. I closed the file. My hands were trembling, not from weakness, but fury. She used my coma as legal grounds to start erasing me, I murmured. Rosario nodded. And Robert helped her do it. Their alliance started 6 weeks after the accident. That quickly. I almost laughed. I used to believe betrayal took time, that it grew slowly, like mold under paint. I was wrong. Sometimes it arrives like a wolf, gnawing through you before the blood's even dry. Carla once promised she'd wait 1,000 years if she had to. Apparently, she meant 6 weeks. She told the press she refused to pull the plug, I said, voice sharp. Said she couldn't live without me. She didn't, Rosario said gently. She didn't pull the plug. She just started building a new life around your body. The door creaked open. Carla stepped in, eyes wide when she saw Rosario. Her tone changed immediately. You're awake again. I brought you fresh fruit and, Rosario, could you give us a moment? Rosario didn't move. I gave a small nod. As soon as she left, Carla's entire demeanor softened. She sat on the chair beside me, placing a silver thermos on the table. It's your favorite, white tea with honey. The nurse said you had trouble swallowing. I stared at the thermos. You know what else is hard to swallow? A betrayal that's been brewing under your nose for months. She stiffened, the smile faltering. Jerry, please. I don't want to fight. You've just woken up. Let's not turn this into a trial. It's not a trial, I said quietly. Trials come with rules. She swallowed, color draining slightly from her face. I made mistakes. I was lonely. The board was in chaos. You were in a coma. She winced. Yes. And your solution was to build a future with Robert? She tried to touch my arm. I shifted away. It wasn't like that, she said quickly. It didn't start like that. I didn't plan for it. No, I agreed. You just let it happen. The dinners. The signatures. The penthouse. Her eyes widened. You've been looking into. I don't need to look, I said coldly. You left a trail a first-year intern could follow. Jerry, it was never meant to go this far. You bought him a penthouse with my son's inheritance. She froze. Silence sat between us like fog before a storm. I was grieving, she whispered. Everything I did was to keep the company alive. Robert helped. You didn't grieve me, I said. You replaced me. In the bedroom. In the boardroom. In the press. Tears welled in her eyes, but they didn't move me. I still love you, she said, and for the first time in months, it almost sounded real. Almost. I leaned forward slightly, ignoring the pain in my ribs. Then prove it. She blinked. How? Sign over every proxy. Step down from the trust. Admit the fraud. Give up the penthouse. Her lips parted, stunned. You want me to confess? To the board? To the public? No, I said. I want you to confess to yourself. Then disappear. She stood up, breathing hard. I saved your empire, don't act like I haven't bled for you. And you'll bleed again if you think you're entitled to a single cent more. Her voice broke, low and bitter. You're not the man I married. No, I said. The man you married died in that crash. I'm the one who came back to bury him, and everyone who tried to steal his name. She stared at me for a long time. Then turned and walked out without another word. Rosario stepped in as the door clicked shut. I've scheduled an internal audit, she said quietly. It'll be discreet, for now. I nodded. Not for long. Rosario looked at me, expression unreadable. What happens when the audit's done? I looked at the closed door. The silence behind it. Then we bring down Robert. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of pain. Not because of the hospital lights or the rhythmic beep of the monitor beside me. I was just awake. Not alert. Not restless. Just wide awake, like my body was scared to trust silence again. When I closed my eyes, I didn't see darkness, I saw Carla's hand in his. I saw the signatures on the forged documents. I saw the penthouse. The lies. The precision of her betrayal. It wasn't the cheating. That I could have forgiven, maybe. But she used my name to bury me while I was still breathing. And worse than that, she did it without hesitation. I sat up in bed, dragging the oxygen monitor off my finger. My heart rate was steady, but inside, I was unraveling. Not out of rage. No, something colder had settled in my chest. The kind of cold that didn't shout. It observed. Measured. Waited for perfect conditions before it moved. Rosario had gone home hours ago. I'd told her to rest, but I knew she wouldn't. She was probably combing through more financials by now, chasing every ghost entry Carla tried to erase. I looked around the hospital room. The fruit basket Carla left still sat untouched. White orchids. A pristine note card with nothing written on it. She didn't even bother faking a message. A year ago, I would have given my life to keep her safe. Now I wondered how long she waited before opening the first bottle of wine with Robert. Did she cry the first time she kissed him? Or did it feel like a relief? A knock came at the door. It was the night nurse. She smiled gently. You should try sleeping, Mr. Lancaster. Your vitals are holding steady. I nodded absently. She dimmed the lights and left, and I sat in the quiet hum of machines and betrayal. How many times had I pictured this moment while trapped in my body? Not the confrontation. Not the rage. The awakening. The reckoning. The moment I could move again. When I could finally fight back. But now that I was here, it didn't feel victorious. It felt lonely. The kind of loneliness that doesn't come from being alone, it comes from knowing that the person you loved most saw your silence as permission to erase you. And the worst part? She was good at it. Too good. She knew my passwords. My signature. My financial logic. She knew exactly where I kept my firewalls and how to burn around them. Which meant I didn't just love the wrong person, I trained her to destroy me. I looked down at my hand. The one she used to hold in public, when cameras flashed and she pretended I was her whole world. It looked smaller now. Everything did. The empire. The marriage. The ambition. It was all shrinking beneath the weight of betrayal. I heard Carla's voice in my mind. I didn't plan it. It just happened. That line kept circling back. Not because it explained anything, but because it excused everything. No. That's not how betrayal works. It doesn't just happen. It begins with one small silence. One lie. One dinner where you don't correct someone when they touch your hand too long. One moment where you let someone else's name linger in your mind before your spouse's. I built a kingdom so no one could hurt me. And I married the only person who knew how to bring it down from the inside. I rested my head against the pillow and let my chest rise slowly. Robert. He was next. I'd trusted him with more than numbers. I'd named him interim financial head when I went into surgery. My legal team had warned me. Said it was risky. But I insisted. He's family, I told them. Family. That word sounded dirty now. Robert didn't just steal shares. He rewrote legacy. And Carla handed him the pen. A text buzzed on the tablet beside my bed. I reached over. It was from Rosario. Found the power of attorney transfer. Signed 4 months after your crash. Witnessed by her lawyer. Will send Doc in the morning. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. She knew. The walls weren't just cracking, they were gone. And yet, somehow, the silence felt heavier than the rage ever could. There was no more betrayal to uncover. The knife was already in my back. The only question left was how many people smiled while they twisted it. I closed my eyes and whispered, "You did good, Jerry. You gave them your heart. Now give them the consequences." Sleep didn't come. But peace would. Soon. The boardroom felt colder than usual. Maybe it was the air conditioning, or maybe it was the silence that followed after I pushed the last document across the table. Carla sat 3 chairs down, perfectly styled, perfectly calm, except for her hands. They were clenched tight beneath the table, hidden from the room, but not from me. I leaned back in the head chair. My chair. Effective immediately, I'm reinstating full control of Lancaster Group. The medical board has cleared me. This meeting is formal acknowledgement of that transition. No one objected. Not publicly, anyway. Half these men and women had voted Carla into acting CEO while I was under. They had smiled at press conferences. Given sympathy interviews. But now they couldn't even meet my eyes. Cowards, the lot of them. Robert wasn't here. He'd sent a legal proxy. Flight delay, they claimed. I knew better. He was watching from a safe distance, hoping Carla could hold the line. I cleared my throat and tapped the next file. There's been an unauthorized merger proposal filed under Carla Lancaster's authority. With power of attorney she gained via fraudulent documents. Now that got their attention. All eyes swiveled to Carla. I looked straight at her. Would you like to explain? Her jaw flexed. The merger was strategic. Timely. You were unconscious, we couldn't delay decisions for a recovery we weren't sure would happen. And that gave you permission to sign off on a $30 million cross-holding with Robert's shadow firm? That silenced the room. One of the board members, Harrington, coughed awkwardly. Jerry, if this is true, that's a serious violation. It's not a violation, Carla said quickly. It was necessary. And profitable. You can't deny the company's stability this past quarter. I'm not denying the numbers, I said. I'm denying your integrity. I turned to the projector and nodded at Rosario. She stood quietly in the back, pulled out a remote, and displayed a bank statement on the screen. It wasn't just a merger. Robert and Carla had rerouted profits, legally masked through offshore entities, but the ownership records were clear. Shells. Strawmen. A daisy chain of cover that all led back to them. Gasps circled the room. Then Rosario switched to the final slide. A document. The name on it, Rosario Lane, Interim Executive Director, Office of Compliance and Oversight. I looked at Carla and spoke plainly. I'm appointing Rosario to review every contract signed in my absence. She'll report directly to me. Carla's voice shook, finally. You're replacing me, with your assistant? No, I said. I'm replacing a liar with someone I trust. She stood, face pale. You can't do this. I just did. And before she could respond, the door burst open. A junior associate stepped in, breathless, holding an envelope. Sir. This just came. It's urgent. I took the envelope, opened it. What I saw stopped me. And for the first time since waking up, I froze. Inside was a birth certificate. Newly filed. Child, Robert A. Chin Jr. Mother, Carla M. Lancaster. The room went still. Rosario slowly turned her head toward me. I stared at the paper again, and for the first time in days, my hands trembled. Carla sat down. Didn't deny it. Didn't speak. She just exhaled. I leaned forward, elbows on the table, voice like ice. You're pregnant? No answer. I turned to her. You didn't think to mention this? Still silence. And that's when I realized, it wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was legacy. This wasn't about money. Or power. Or love. It was about bloodlines. The child she carried bore my name. And she planned to give it to Robert. The room watched me. Waiting for my explosion. But I didn't shout. I stood up slowly, gathered the papers, and looked straight at Carla. You tried to erase me. She blinked hard. You failed. Then I turned to Rosario. File the custody injunction. Rosario didn't flinch. Already prepared. And just like that, the war stopped being corporate. It became personal. Rosario stood in the doorway of my study holding a sealed folder. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her eyes told me everything. This wasn't a report. It was a trigger. Is that it? I asked, not looking up from the fireplace. Yes, she said softly. Lab confirmed. 3 times. Chain of custody intact. DNA comparison run against both you and Robert. I turned slowly in the chair and held out my hand. She hesitated, then stepped forward and placed the folder in my palm. I stared at it for a long moment. The seal wasn't broken. Because I already knew the answer. But I needed to see it in print. The paper inside was thin, clinical, impersonal. A standard genetic match analysis, stapled at the corner. And at the bottom, in precise language. Biological father, Robert A. Chen. Probability of paternity, 99.98%. I read it once. Then again. Then I placed the folder down and closed it gently. Jerry, Rosario said, voice barely above a whisper, I'm so sorry. I looked up at her, and for a second, just a second, my composure cracked. Not because I still loved Carla. That part had died the moment her lips touched Robert's in my hospital room. What shattered me was the depth of their calculation. The timing. The ultrasound Rosario had found was dated a week before my accident. The pregnancy wasn't an accident. It was leverage. It was strategy. It was insurance in case I woke up. Carla hadn't just betrayed me. She'd planned a replacement, down to the bloodline. I stood slowly. My hand brushed the fireplace mantel. A photo still rested there, me and Carla at our wedding. She wore white. I wore navy. Her eyes gleamed with ambition. Mine glowed with trust. How foolish I'd been. I grabbed the frame, pulled it from the wood, and tossed it into the fire. The glass cracked before the flames touched it. I didn't watch it burn. I turned to Rosario. Where is she now? At the penthouse, she said. Robert hasn't been seen in 3 days. His phone's off. Carla's been attending board meetings alone. I nodded once. Call her. Tell her I want to meet. Where? I didn't hesitate. The office. My floor. Lock the building down. No press. No leaks. I want this to be private. Rosario's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind her eyes, approval, maybe. Or fear. Understood, she said, and left. When Carla entered the office later that evening, she wore a white coat over a pearl gray dress. As if playing the role of a grieving wife who just wanted peace. I was already seated behind the desk, everything cleared except for a single envelope in the center. She looked around the office, maybe expecting guards or lawyers. There were none. Just me. And the silence. She smiled politely. You wanted to speak? I said nothing. Her heels clicked on the floor as she stepped closer. Look, Jerry. I know things are tense. But we can talk this through. What happened between me and Robert, it was never meant to become so complicated. I stared at her. I didn't expect to get pregnant, she continued. And yes, I made some mistakes, but I thought you were gone. I was grieving. You were calculating, I said. She stopped. Her smile faltered. I forgave the affair, I said. I even understood the power grab. But the child? That was your safety net, wasn't it? A baby born under the Lancaster name. A legacy to pass down, so Robert could stay in the picture, hidden behind your grieving widow performance. Don't be ridiculous, she snapped. I slid the envelope across the desk. Open it. She hesitated. Then picked it up. Her fingers trembled as she read the lab results. And when she looked back up at me, her face had drained of all pretense. "What do you want?" she whispered. "I want you to understand the depth of what you've done," I said calmly. "You lied to me, to the board, to the media. You used my family's name like a stage prop while building an empire with a man who would have sold me to save his own skin. You have no proof." "I have enough to bury you in court," I said. "But I'm not taking you to court." She blinked. "You're not?" I stood and walked around the desk, facing her now, inches away. "No. Because that would imply you still matter. And you don't." She flinched. "I've already filed for annulment," I continued. "Not divorce. Annulment. On the grounds of fraud. Our marriage will be erased like it never happened. You'll lose the Lancaster name. You'll lose your board position. And as for the child..." She stiffened. "He's innocent. He's not mine," I said coldly. "And you won't use my name to protect him." Her voice cracked. "Jerry, please. You'll step down," I said. "You'll sign every document Rosario puts in front of you. You'll return every asset purchased with company money. And you'll disappear." Her eyes were wild now. "Or what?" I leaned in close, my voice a whisper. "Or I'll release the documents. All of them. And Robert's debt collectors, the ones he lied about settling, will come knocking on your penthouse door. They won't ask for interest. They'll ask for collateral." Her breath hitched. "You don't know what they're capable of." "I do," I said. "I paid them off last year. In secret. To protect the Lancaster name. But now? I'm done protecting people who spit on it." Tears welled in her eyes, but I felt nothing. Not rage. Not pity. Just closure. "You were my wife," I said softly. "And you taught me more about war than business school ever could." She collapsed into the chair across from me, sobbing quietly. I didn't offer her comfort. I pressed the intercom. "Rosario. Send in the papers." Moments later, Rosario entered, heels quiet, expression unreadable. She placed a thin folder on the desk beside Carla. Carla stared at her. "You think you've won?" Rosario replied coolly, "I didn't play to win. I played to protect what he built." Carla's lip curled. "You're just a secretary." Rosario didn't blink. "And you're just temporary." Carla signed. Page after page. Her hand shook, but she didn't stop. She knew there was no other option. When it was done, she looked up at me one last time. "You'll regret this." I looked at Rosario. Escort her out. As they left, I turned back to the desk. There was no satisfaction. No triumph. Only silence. But for the first time since waking up, it was my silence. Earned. Owned. 2 weeks passed. 2 weeks since Carla was erased from the Lancaster family, both in ink and in legacy. No media statement was made. No dramatic press release. I didn't need one. People like Carla vanish not with explosions, but with silence. A few signed documents, quiet settlements, and a deletion from every executive photo on our website. She walked out of my life in a white coat and pearl earrings, and by morning, she was just Ms. Emma Carla in a legal archive labeled annulled. Robert never resurfaced. There were rumors. One suggested he tried to flee to Dubai but got caught in transit for using a flagged passport. Another claimed his own investors turned on him. I didn't chase him. I didn't need to. That kind of man? The world handles on its own. But I made sure of one thing: the penthouse was sold. Quietly. The proceeds were donated, under Rosario's name, to a children's hospital. The exact one where Carla once staged her grief interview. I smiled when I saw the plaque, donated in honor of those who waited without love. A fitting gravestone for what she called marriage. My next move wasn't corporate. It was personal. I rewrote my will. The Lancaster name would go to blood only, no proxies, no spouses, no distant relations. Only the child I chose to raise. My fortune, assets, and every legacy project I'd built would go to a future heir. One born of loyalty, not ambition. One born not out of convenience, but truth. Rosario sat across from me when I signed it. She was quiet, as always, but this time I could feel something in her posture. A hesitation. Her fingers played with the edge of a folder she hadn't opened. And for once, I asked, "What is it?" She blinked. "There's something I haven't told you." I nodded. "Go on." Her voice was steady, but her hands weren't. 6 months into your coma, I filed a side investigation. I never mentioned it. I wasn't sure it would come to anything. But I couldn't sit still. I raised an eyebrow. "What did you find?" She handed me the folder. Inside was a timeline. A paper trail. Security footage. And at the center of it, Robert. But not in a boardroom. He was in a clinic. Bribing a neurologist. 2 weeks before your car accident, Rosario said softly, Carla had a meeting with this doctor. She claimed it was a routine checkup. But after that meeting, the brake lines on your car were replaced. I looked at the timestamp. 2 days before I crashed. My fingers curled around the edge of the paper. You're saying? It wasn't an accident, she whispered. It was staged. And the mechanic, he disappeared 2 days after the incident. Never found. I said nothing. My pulse didn't rise. My breathing didn't change. I just sat there, letting the final truth wash over me. Carla hadn't just betrayed me. She tried to kill me. And failed. I closed the folder and placed it beside my will. No police, I said. Rosario hesitated. Jerry. No police, I repeated. I looked out the window. The city was alive beneath us. Carla's city. Robert's world. A place that once cheered their names and offered them cameras, attention, applause. Let it keep cheering. They were done. I have something better, I said. 1 month later, Rosario walked beside me through the polished marble hallways of the Metropolitan Legacy Ball. It was an exclusive charity gala, the kind of event Carla used to dress for like war. Only tonight, she wasn't on the guest list. But Robert was. Not under his real name, he wouldn't dare. But the alias, Nathan Cole, was enough for our facial recognition software to catch. Rosario looked elegant in black. Silent, calm. But I could feel the tension in her spine as we entered the ballroom. Are you ready? She asked. I gave her a small smile. Born ready. The evening unfolded like every other upper-tier gala. Champagne. Empty compliments. Conversations that meant nothing. And then the MC took the stage. Tonight, he announced, we honor not just legacy, but redemption. Please welcome our surprise guest, whose return has shaken headlines, silenced boardrooms, and rewritten every rule, Mr. Jerry Lancaster. Applause. Whispers. Shock. Cameras turned. I stepped forward. The lights hit me like a warm tide. I could feel the murmurs ripple. Jerry Lancaster? Alive? Standing? I walked to the mic and smiled calmly. Thank you for that kind introduction. It's true, I was gone for a while. And while I was gone, a few things happened. Some people changed. Some people stayed the same. And some people, well, they wrote checks with my name on them, even while preparing to sign my death certificate. Nervous laughter. I looked straight into the crowd. Right at Robert. He paled. He wasn't expecting this. I continued. But I didn't come back for revenge. Not exactly. I came back for clarity. Then I nodded. On cue, the screens behind me lit up. Video footage. Security camera clips. Account transfers. A full dossier, cut into sharp, time-stamped truth. Gasps echoed through the ballroom. Robert stood up. Tried to walk out. 2 men in suits blocked his path. I'm not pressing charges, I said, calm. I'm just revealing facts. Transparency is cleansing, isn't it? I could see him shaking. I turned to the crowd. As of tonight, every donation made to the Lancaster Foundation will be tripled. And not a single cent will pass through the hands of traitors. Rosario stepped onto the stage beside me. The applause that followed was real. Afterward, as we walked to the car, she looked up at me. You could have buried him in court. I already did, I said. With silence. With truth. With legacy. She looked away, smiling faintly. I think your father would have been proud. I paused. You think so? I know so. We stood beside the car for a moment longer. I looked at her hand. She hadn't moved it. Neither had I. But something hung between us, unspoken, heavy, waiting. You never left, I said. Her voice caught. I never wanted to. I took her hand gently, not like a statement, but like a question. She didn't pull away. And for the first time in a year, I exhaled. Not as a CEO. Not as an heir. Just as a man who had been destroyed, erased, betrayed, and somehow, was still standing. The city didn't cheer. It didn't need to. Because I didn't need noise to win. Just truth. And someone willing to hold it with me. In the months that followed, the Lancaster Group rose to record highs. Rosario became the official chief operating officer. Quietly, we began adopting orphan innovation programs. Projects Carla once called wastes of time. She disappeared from the public eye. Last I heard, she filed bankruptcy in Monaco. Robert? No one knows. The last footage we had showed him boarding a private boat near Cartagena. After that, he vanished into the ocean, just like his honor. And me? I live quietly now. The noise of revenge is over. All that remains is a home, a study, and the smell of fresh tea in the morning. And sometimes, when the world is still, I catch Rosario humming while reviewing files in the room next door. That's legacy. Not the wealth. Not the buildings. The people who remain when the fire clears. The ones who waited without being asked. The ones who never needed to be trusted, because they already were. And as I look out at the world I nearly lost, I smile. Because I didn't just survive. I rewrote the ending.